Hey guys, welcome back to Strong Successful Male. So for today, I'm going to go over an email that was sent from a subscriber. This is from a guy, sounds like he's around 40 years old. He's from across the pond over in Scotland. And he's going to share his story, or actually two different stories about these nut job girlfriends he had way back in the day starting around 2012. You're going to see in the story, guys, that both those girls were on the hot crazy scale. Beautiful physically, amazing in the sack, but they were nuts. And all the crap he goes through with each of them, including both of them, accusing him of some things, with him getting arrested and all that. And it'll be a very good one to go over here, guys, for multiple reasons. This is a really entertaining story and great for a Friday night to kick off the weekend. This covers lots of important lessons about, obviously, the hot crazy scale, how you have to be aware that oftentimes the more beautiful she is, often there's a lot of crazy there. And you have to be careful because, yeah, you can enjoy having a pretty gal on your arm and she's amazing to do the nasty with. However, that's a small percentage of the time versus all the crap you may deal with. As well as the important lessons of never date a coworker. You all know that. Never move in with a girl unless like you've been with her for years. Really know her and you're about to marry her and it's like the final test. And also being aware of who you're attracted to. A lot of guys, everybody has a type that they tend to attract and be attracted to. And if you tend to be attracted to the crazy gals, you need to reevaluate your some things. Otherwise, it can make your life a living hell. Now, as you can see, this is a longer story, so I'm going to jump right into it right now. He says, "Hi SSM. I'm writing you from across the pond in Bonnie, Scotland. I follow your channel, and although I don't agree with everything you say, I think the message your channel gives guys is important, and you'll see why later on. In 2012, I met a girl who I will call First Psycho, and you will see why later. I used to work with her, and at the time, I was a science graduate and working on my second degree part-time. I was a bit of a player at the time and could usually get my pick of women and had an insane ethic for working out, playing sports, as well as being well-read and educated, which gave me a great body but also made me interesting. Or at least I could hold a conversation on just about any topic." And he says, FYI guys, this is priceless. Well, yes, if you're into dating relationships, it is good and certainly valuable to be able to have a conversation about pretty much anything. And honestly, that helps you in life, dealing with all sorts of people. Being well-rounded is important. Soon after my ex, Psycho number 1, started working for the company, and I noticed her straight away. She had an awesome body and was pretty to boot. In fact, she was literally the girl everyone was after. I made some inquiries with some folks that we both knew, managed to get her number, and soon after we were going out on regular dates. Smack! Never date your coworkers. I know you know this now, but you really want to jeopardize your job, career for some piece of ass? I mean, really. Now, I know he knows this now, but I gotta make that abundantly clear. Get another chick. And he made it clear it's not very difficult for him to get girls, so he should just met some other chick someplace else. The job is for where you earn your paycheck or build your career, nothing more. And you're gonna see here, guys, exactly why I say that more times than you can compute. I should at this point tell you what my science degree is in, and that's zoology and psychology. So I'm not just educated, but I'm supposed to be able to evaluate evidence, especially in animals and people, but I swear I did not see any of what I can see now are glaringly obvious red flags, and this is what I want to highlight to your viewers. Okay, so he's a sharp guy, he's educated in that department, but still he couldn't see it. Something tells me you were blinded by her boobs and her great ass and her pretty face and other things. He says, "You're not stupid. We are innately trusting people, but by listening to these stories, you'll soon be able to recognize these red flags, but go more with your gut feelings rather than what, for example, her friends are telling you whilst they are quite frankly gaslighting you. Trust your gut feeling, guys. If you think there's something wrong with her, then there probably is something wrong, especially if you're normally a very rational person." I digress. Back to the story. Anyway, some of the stories that the psycho would tell me were a little far-flung, but there was no reason to doubt them at the time. So she's giving you all sorts of crazy stories, but you're like, oh, whatever, just keep smiling. I'll keep staring at your chest and, keep your head down there, honey. I kept thinking, why would she lie about that? One such story involved her being a model for M&S, a huge brand here in the UK, and being on the side of a bus for one of their promotions. Another story was that her aunt owned a mansion, but she wasn't living in it because she was too old for the upkeep and instead lived in a smaller cottage on the estate. Yet again, I had no doubt. I'll explain the reasons for these stories later on. Another story would involve being a master at golf. I don't play golf, so no way of knowing otherwise. Yet another was that she was in a car accident with a friend and had been rushed to the hospital. Yet again, why would someone lie about these things? He says this and more related to me, were more revealed to me later after we broke up, but all relevant to this psycho story. Word would come to me from anonymous people later on that she was seen out with another guy walking around the village that she lived in. I asked her flat outright if this was true, and she laughed it off and said I was being ridiculous. That the person was her brother, and the anonymous person was just someone she once knew that hated her. The person later told me that she knew both her brother and that he didn't wear glasses. So all these weird stories and all these people saying things, there's a lot of red flags here. But again, he's younger, didn't know as much, and you get hypnotized by the big chest. Other red flags was the drinking. Not always, but when she would sometimes come over to the flat that I rented, she would drink really fast and then see things that weren't there, such as the front door being unlocked, and then when I went to check the door, it was shut and locked. I would then ask her why she said that, and she would shrug it off and say it was a mistake. Okay, so now she's seeing shit. Okay, get out, dude. Run. Run while you have the chance. Another red flag, which might sound obvious, but small things would go missing in my flat, such as a pen drive with a book that I was writing on, and hundreds of personal photos. A football shirt, a shot glass that she had bought for me from Ireland, a red hoodie. All really insignificant things in themselves, but all part of the gaslighting to make you start doubting yourself. Now she's stealing shit. Taking her trophies. Thankfully, I never asked her to move in with me or had anything with her that couldn't be thrown away if things had gone sour, but I got lucky. You still work with her, man, and that can cause all sorts of problems. The final straw that broke the camel's back, one evening we both went out drinking with a friend who was in town for the day and wanted to catch up. We both had work the next day, so I decided to keep it calm. The bar was just across the street from my flat, and so after a while, Psycho number 1 said that she'd go home to get ready for bed while she left us boys catch up. After a couple hours, I came home to see that my whole flat had been trashed. It was completely turned over, like a thief had come in looking for cash. And there was my girlfriend sitting calmly on my bed taking off her makeup. You come home and your apartment, your flat is trashed, and she's just sitting there like it's no big deal. Well, obviously she's the one that trashed it. Dude, Psycho, you had your chance to get rid of her, now she's stuck in your house. I called her out on it and asked her what the F had she done and why she just shrugged it off. What happened next gets weird, but guys, listen up. I then told her to leave and go home as we are done. She then got up, walked straight over to me, and punched me square in the nose, and then ran to the living room and started trashing my laptop. The whole thing I owned of value, and the one thing I absolutely needed for my university work. At this point, I was pretty pissed, and all I wanted to do was hit her back and destroy something of hers. He says I was much bigger than her, stronger, and I knew how to box. But I didn't. Good. If you laid one hand on her, even though nobody could blame you, it would have been absolute hell for you. He says, in that moment of red mist, I told myself that there was no witnesses and it was just her and me. If the police or anyone turns up and he has a mark on her, then guess who they're going to be taking away? Yes, you got it. Even though right now my nose is bleeding, they will always take the woman's side, and I can't stress this enough, guys. Do not do them a favor by lashing out, something I'd also learned later this as well. Yes, even though it's warranted and you're in self-defense, one little scratch and boom, the waterworks start and your ass is dragged away in handcuffs. I phoned her parents and sister and told them to come and get her, as I'd broken up with her and then she just attacked me and my things. She was in the bedroom at this point on the phone to her mom, telling them that it was okay and not to come and get her. At this point, several text messages were sent, which I used later as evidence. Eventually, she convinced me that she would stay for one night only and then would leave for work the next day and wouldn't come back. I agreed, but I made sure to keep my distance that night, and thank the F I did too. I don't care, man. She had to leave, end of story. I would have done anything to get her out of there. The next morning, I woke up and she was gone. She was on an earlier shift than I was. I got ready for work and then headed in as normal. When I got into work, though people were looking at me weird, I noticed she was in the corner at the far end of the office where we worked, open planned, talking to one of the selection managers. Here we go. Gee, what's happening? What could happen next? I thought this was odd, but thought nothing more and went on about my day and heard nothing for the rest of the day. This was Friday. That night, I went to bed peacefully at a decent time and thought nothing of what happened the previous night. Well, you went to bed peacefully, but let's watch what happens in the middle of the night. At 3 o'clock in the morning, the police knocked down my front door to my flat. FYI, this ever happens to you, believe me or not, you will crap your pants. I was fast asleep one minute and the next surrounded by cops. I didn't know what was going on and literally 1,000,001 things were going through my head at the minute. I was read my Miranda rights and told them I was being arrested for attempted murder. I gotta spell it out. And by the way, you have Miranda rights in Scotland? I mean, are you describing something like that, or I'm just curious? I was then asked some questions about what had happened. I explained in great detail what had happened and then showed them the damage and mess that she had caused. Luckily for me, the police officer was really decent, a rarity these days in the UK, and said to me that usually they had to, in cases of attempted murder, handcuff me and put me in the van, but this time they were going to make an exception. Credit where credit is due. You got lucky, man. Again, this is 2012 or whatever. So at this point, remember I said about the hot crazy scale and it's not worth it? And these wackos and how they are and all the red flags she had about making shit up, stealing stuff, the drinking, seeing things that weren't there, etc., etc. Is it worth it? Really? Anyways, I was taken away by the police to the station and questioned for hours. Oh, I might add at this point, nobody knew where I was. And despite what you see in the movies, here in the UK, you do not get a phone call. I was asked if I wanted a lawyer, and I refused as I said that I had done nothing wrong and was telling the truth, so I didn't need one. Smack! You always get your lawyer. He says, smack. If you can get a lawyer, guys, regardless of innocence, get one. After hours of questioning the desk sergeant, seemed that I should be kept in some sort of some kind of punishment, despite being the one and only victim. As it was a bank holiday weekend, I would spend 3 days in the cell before being released, pending further investigation. Yeah, those big boobs on that Bonnie Last aren't exactly worth it now, huh? I should add at this point that the detectives had to be called in to investigate as it was an attempted murder charge. I live in a small town that doesn't have detectives, so they had to be shipped from Glasgow, 4-hour drive away. Yeah, I'm sure they love that. And believe me, they were nearly as pissed as I was. The Crown Prosecution Service eventually saw sense and dropped all the charges, probably seeing as though I was the only one with injuries and that my property was damaged. I should also say that I made a complaint to the police about her behavior, and on several occasions they told me that she had been arrested and questioned, but this turned out to be lies. She never was. He says, take note, guys, the agents of the law are not on your side. Very sad. So what happened? Well, it turns out that psycho number 1 suffered from narcissistic personality disorder. Shocker. A psychological condition whereby who you think you are and who you actually are miles apart. You basically put yourself up on a pedestal, and as if you're not on that pedestal in real life, even though she was gorgeous and had a great body and could probably have gotten there through effort and hard work, you have to fill in the gaps with lies, and lots of them. So all the lies and deception I told you about her before was her way of keeping myself and every other party who would listen a part of the deception. The seeing things, etc. was probably mild schizophrenia, but that's just speculation, as I've seen it a few times before. In other words, you've experienced with other crazy girls, huh? The morning after the breakup, she'd gone into work. Now remember, I broke up with her, but in her mind, she's way up on the pedestal, and that she can't handle it that someone would break up with her. Well, this sounds like pretty much every woman in the West these days. She also can't have it that she would be accused of doing something to someone, so when she went to work early in the morning, she set up a meeting with the most senior management there, which is what I walked in on. Now, anyone with NPD doesn't want to get found out, so they generally shun any questioning, which is why I believe that she never intended on getting the police involved, except she wasn't too bright. She told the manager at the company that she had split up with me, and as a result, I had attacked her. At your work, jeopardizing your job. And this is why you don't date your coworkers. I don't care how hot they are. I don't care if the girl next to your office just wants to come in every day and suck your you-know-what for free. Don't do it. Don't date or get involved with your coworkers. The company has a responsibility to act on such information, but as I said, she wouldn't have thought about that. The company then phoned the police, who then questioned her about the allegations, and as there was no physical evidence, she then had to step up with the lies to fill in the gaps. Lies that just kept escalating until it turned to attempted murder. Good freaking lord, dude. It says the aftermath. Well, for a long time I walked about town with an eye over my shoulder. Every time I went to the pub, I thought that I'd get jumped. He says, FYI, guys, a good reason to keep in shape. Keep hitting the gym and don't shy away from the heavy bag. And I thought I'd get into an altercation. However, over time, people came out of the woodwork to tell me stories about the psycho and tell me stories that she'd made up and was called out on. In general, people were very sympathetic to me and could see through her story, although there were always a few simps that continued to take her side and they wanted to sleep with her, usually beta guys who didn't stand a chance. A gal like that, if she's good looking, good body, is always going to get suckers until she gets older, puts on 75 pounds, gets wrinkly, and things start sagging and turning gray. But even then, she'll find somebody. He says, anyway, roll forward a few years in time, which I refused to date anyone seriously. I don't regret as such, but yeah, I was a player. I go to some birthday parties and then wake up the next day in bed with a gorgeous accountant with the most amazing boobs or the cute bar girl everybody was eyeing up. I guess I was lucky that way, and although a lot of women will look down on this behavior, it was you guys who molded me into that guy. I never pretended to want more from these women, and I never lied about my intentions, and I have to say I met a lot of awesome ladies during that time, and also a lot of mental cases, but hey-ho. So yeah, you were a player, you were a Chad, you were a Tyrone. Any wonder that you met up with a lot of psychos. Now, you would think, guys, after this first go-around with this nut job, he'd be done with the crazy, right? No, it doesn't stop there. And again, you're going to see why you don't get involved with the crazy gals. And again, the old hot crazy scale. Guys could say, well, she's pretty. How do you know she's crazy? Trust me, you can figure it out. And usually it's in the eyes. So on to crazy or psycho story number 2. To remind you about not doing these things. Soon after, there was a takeover at the local bar, and the new owner had employed a young, pretty gal from the city down the road. She caught my eye immediately. Some girls just have that look that you just go for. You mean the crazy ones that you're clearly attracted to? Dark hair, nice body, smiles with her eyes. I was hooked. I asked her for her name, and the next minute we were dating. We had some great nights, and the red flags were at a minimum. I told her about the psycho number 1 and everything she did. Can you guess what I did wrong here? We were dating for about 6 months, and we both got into trouble with renting our apartments. The contracts were coming up and landlords were selling, etc. So we agreed to get a place together. Smack! You knew her for 6 months and you're moving in with her. Did you not learn what happens with the crazy one before? Now, you didn't move in with her, but she was still in your place and what she did. You don't move in with a girl unless you've been with her a long time. And you want to marry her. I don't care if you have no other options. You got to live in your car for a while. Don't do it. And you're going to see right here. He says, not a smack. This was desperation. I had no choice. I disagree. There's always a choice. Find a way. And I'm sure he wouldn't do this again. After he moved in, things went really well, but there were a few red flags which I noticed fairly soon. Imagine that. The first being that she was incredibly messy. That would drive me fucking crazy. I like things in order, no messes, nothing, and I have unfortunately dated and had girlfriends that were fucking slobs. Can't take it. The bedroom on her side of the room was littered with clothes where mine was literally spotless. The second being her drinking after work and how long she spent out after work. She worked in a bar after all. That's a deal breaker for me, guys. A gal that drinks a lot. No way. And of course, she's got to be clean. What happened next? One night I was out while she was working behind the bar, and there was a birthday party posse there. I recognized a gal that I had known for years and said hello and asked why she was there. I bought her a shot and said happy birthday. Psycho number 2 didn't have an issue with that. Another gal came up to me and started talking to me, all with an earshot of my girlfriend, Psycho number 2. So your girlfriend's working the bar, there's a party going on, you're hanging out, having a drink, and a girl you recognize, you buy her a shot, she's a friend of yours. Even though it's a friend of yours, you had no interest in her, that says something to your girlfriend, the bartender. That was a bad move. And now another girl's coming to chit-chat with you, so showing the girls are interested in you. Now, don't get me wrong, women like guys that are popular with other women. It still doesn't mean that they want these gals on their turf. Now watch what happens here. I knew this and thought as long as she can hear what I'm saying, then everything will be okay. After all, I cannot legislate for what people have to say to me. I can only legislate for what I say to them. Anyway, the psycho took umbrage at this because I was getting too much attention, so I thought, fuck it, I'm going home. I do not need this. Anyway, around 12:30 in the morning, Psycho 2 rolls in and starts rummaging amongst her clothes. I ask her what she's doing, and she says that she's looking for cash for cigarettes. She gets her money, then leaves. She doesn't come back until 5 o'clock in the morning. Gee, what's she doing? Or who is she doing? I ask her where she's been. She tells me at the local nightclub. A nightclub in your village? I live in what is a town, but it's pretty much a village. The late bar closes at 2, and she can't tell me where she's been, and she keeps saying the nightclub. At that point, I know she's cheated on me, and for what? Because some girls try to chat me up at the bar? Yeah, pretty much. Conversations that ended in me saying that I was taken. At this point, I knew it was over, so I planned on what I was going to do, although I couldn't have planned what would happen next. Later on that day, she laying in bed after she got in, saying that she had a sore tummy and wanted me to rub it. I was utterly incredulous at this point, as who does that? And B, you're literally in a relationship trial for cheating on me, but hey ho. She eventually went to sleep, and I chilled for nearly the whole day on my sofa with my laptop watching movies. When she eventually woke up, I told her straight that I didn't believe her, would you SSM, and that I was breaking up with her. I'd sleep in the spare room on the guest bed, and when the time was right, I would move out, or she was welcome to do the same. She seemed okay with this at first, but then what? More of the crazy came out? About an hour or so, she came charging through to where I was in the living room and started ranting. I sat there and listened. I still had my laptop on my knees watching my film. By this point, it was maybe 4 or 5 in the afternoon. After a while, she tried to assault me and tell me to get out of my own flat. Something she had no right to do as I was on the lease, but something women feel the right to do since feminism tells them they can, and for the most part, the police facilitate. Here we go again with another crazy shit happening in his apartment. Girl attacking him, all that. History repeats itself. Another crazy gal. I hope you guys learned something from this story about the crazy ones and don't get involved with them. Hell, don't even freaking hook up with them. You can have a lot of fun, but holy crap, they're going to make your life a living hell. She couldn't move me. She couldn't move me by dragging up from my sitting. She couldn't move me by dragging up from my sitting position, so I grabbed her arms and held them by her side and said, "Don't be stupid." Now you got your hands on her. Even though you were stopping her from doing things, still, your hands were on her. When she couldn't overpower me, I let her go, and she said, "I don't know what to do," and the next thing I know, she's on the phone with her friends. At this point, I can sense deja vu, so I called my dad, who doesn't take crap from anyone. I just need a witness. Despite my dad living nearby, her friends sprung from nowhere and then started to assault me to get out of my own house. Her friends show up at your place, which obviously are women and men trying to throw you out of your own place and rough you up. Now at this point, I'm bigger and stronger than her and her male friends and could have easily laid them all out had I wished to, but all the while I kept thinking, I have no witnesses. He says in Scotland this is important in any crime, and so I literally had to let someone walk into my flat and then let them beat me up without me being able to defend myself. He says, believe me, this probably saved me from jail time. The law is so against men, it's unreal over here. Luckily, the guys are weak, and the worst damage was done to my clothes that were basically ripped from my body. Evidence that the police didn't seem to care about. The Psycho 2, his new girlfriend here, then said, I know how to get rid of him, and then called the police saying that I tried to strangle her. Well, I'm not going to go to Scotland anytime soon to pick up girls, that I can tell you after this story. My dad soon arrived, as did the cops. Meanwhile, I sat outside, yet again, only one with injuries, trying to explain the situation and that it was my flat. The police officers were both female, by the way. He says, shocker, I know. The police officers take no time in taking me away. One of the officers was even against me changing out my ripped clothes, and the other officer having to step in. So automatically, you're attacked, trying to be thrown out of your own place, clothes torn, all that, her word against yours, and they drag you away. Remember this, gentlemen. Okay, there you go. Once again, I got carted off to the police station to face questions. Once again, it was a bank holiday weekend, and so would stay another 3 days, and yes, once again, I would initially refuse a lawyer, but not again. Not after they tried to make the same attempted MURDER charges once again. I should add at this point that after this happened, she went back to work that night. Yet more proof that only I was injured, but once again the police were not interested. Again, not only is it just the family courts that have the bias against guys, but, well, the other ones too. This time the police were even less cordial. The political landscape has changed in Scotland, and the SNP, who are becoming more and more militant, wanted more men in prison for domestic things. And so the police had an obligation to oblige with numbers, and I was an easy fix. Well, again, guys, this is why you really pay attention to who you're voting into office, amongst many other things. After the questioning, and keeping you awake every 15 minutes of the night, I was then given another opportunity to get representation at the court when I was summoned to plea. At this point, I took up the opportunity, which I now know I should have now at the outset, even though I had to wait several hours more. The public defender that I got was a woman, but this didn't faze me at all. She tried to go through the fundamentals of law, and I could see she just wanted to leave, but I said to her that I didn't want anyone defending me who didn't believe me, and that she needed to sit and listen. Good for you, bro. I would not want somebody to represent me either that didn't believe me. I then told her all the facts, including that I had footage of the psycho number 2 attacking me when previously drunk on my phone, and exactly what had happened, including psycho number 1. She listened and took my case. She later told me that psycho 2 had wanted her to represent her, but that she had refused. At trial, she told me that you are the one trial here, but she's going to think she is, and she kept her promise. The case went to court. A year before, I was told that it wouldn't have done, but for the SNP's drive for more men to go to prison, I turned up and was asked to take the stand, which itself is unusual, as you can implicate yourself, so they prefer not to. All through the trial, I didn't realize that the Psycho 2's dad was in the pews, the owner of the pub, with his head in his hands the entire time, so much so that I didn't even know he was there. It turns out this wasn't his first false thing. A court hearing, or so I found out, both being acquitted. The judge was a woman, my lawyer was a woman, and the prosecutor was a woman. And I was found innocent. Imagine that. Well, thank God for that, man. When I read your story initially, I thought this time you're going to get busted. Have you learned something from all this? Have we, guys, learned something from all this? Avoid the crazy ones. Don't move in with them, no matter what the situation is. Don't date your coworkers. And you spend lots of time getting to know them. Even then, things can happen. A few years on, I saw her in the local city. Fat, greasy, and ugly. I was never going to say anything nice about her, was after what she had done to me. What she did because I told her that I didn't want to be with her, and because I told her how to do it. How the state will enact her vengeance against me because I'm a man. Lesson learned. Very sad. He says as an update. Remember the gal that I had known for a year who was at the bar that night with her party posse that I had known from years before? Well, she messaged me shortly after asking how I was doing. I didn't message her back as I was in the cells, but I did afterwards. I dated her for a year after before even saying to the other folk that we were dating. 8 years later, we're living together and have a wee boy who's 10 months old. All right, girl number 3, it looks like 3 is the charm, huh? It's not perfect, and it's not the fire you get in the first few days of a relationship, but at least I know she won't burn me. We trust each other and now have made a life together. Guys, be sensible. Don't go chasing waterfalls, and realize that lust and love are 2 different things. Don't let hoo-ha get in the way of your judgment. It's not easy. Us near 40-year-olds know it, and we want you to warn you all. The end. And what did he say at the end? The gal he's with now, there wasn't the, I forget the words, the passion, the sparks in the beginning that the crazy ones gave him, but she was a normal chick. And he's went through all this time, has a son with him, and congratulations on your son, bro. And I hope you teach your son all these things. But there you go, guys. The hot crazy scale, it's there for a reason. You can always tell through the eyes, amongst many other things. And I don't care how hot she is. I don't care if she has freaking triple D's and a heart-shaped ass, and she can suck a golf ball through a garden hose, and you get the point of all those different things that, you know, the sayings there. If you can sense she's nuts, don't waste your time. Don't put your D in crazy P. Okay? I need to make a t-shirt that says that. But anyhow, guys, a lot of lessons here. I thought you found this very entertaining. So be careful. Be careful, all you guys who are dating in relationships. And again, don't date your fucking coworkers. The job is for you to earn a paycheck and take care of yourself and your family, or build your career. And you don't move with a girl until you're with her for years, really getting to know her, and that's the final stretch. He said he was in a tough situation. I can appreciate that, but there's always a way. And look what happened moving with a crazy one. There you go. All right, guys, that is it for today. Be sure to comment down below and let me know what you think about this. And guys, you got a great story like to send, definitely email it to me, strongsuccessfulmale@gmail.com. Just give me some time to get to it, and if it's a good one, I definitely will. And be sure to like the video, share with your friends, and subscribe. I'll catch you next time.